Welcome to An Interview in History. Imagine a podcast that serves as a bridge across time, connecting listeners to the voices of history's most impactful figures. Each episode is a deep dive into the lives and legacies of these individuals, exploring not just their well-documented achievements, but also uncovering lesser-known facts that shaped their contributions to our world. From scientists who unlocked the mysteries of the universe to activists who fought for social change, each story is a testament to the indelible mark they left on society. This journey through history will not only educate, but also inspire listeners to appreciate the intricate tapestry of human progress. This week on An Interview in History, we're talking with John Muir, also known as John of the Mountains and Father of the National Parks. He's a Scottish-born American naturalist, author, environmental philosopher, botanist, zoologist, glaciologist, and an early advocate for the preservation of wilderness in the United States. This interview takes place on March 4th, 1914. Welcome, Mr. Muir. It's a great honor to speak with you today. Your name is legendary in the world of conservation, but let's start with your early life. Can you tell us about your parents and siblings?
A pleasure to be here, but let's not be so formal. Please call me John. I was born in Dunbar, Scotland, in 1838. My father, Daniel Muir, was a strict and devout man. He believed in hard work and discipline. My mother, Anne Gilroy Muir, was softer in nature, and I owe my love of poetry and beauty to her. Life in Scotland was full of adventure for me. I roamed the countryside, climbed castle walls, and enjoyed the rugged coast.
John, did you have any siblings?
Yes, I had 7 siblings. We grew up together in Dunbar, Scotland, before moving to Wisconsin when I was a boy. Life on the farm was demanding, and we all had to work hard, but those early years shaped my love for nature. My brothers and sisters were part of that journey, though I was always the one most drawn to the wilderness.
So, who were they? And how old were they when you moved to America?
When we moved to America in 1849, I was 11 years old. My siblings were older, ranging from my oldest brother Daniel, who was about 22 at the time, to the youngest, who was just a few years old. In total, I had 5 brothers: Daniel, David, James, William, and John, and 2 sisters, Margaret and Anne. Daniel, as the oldest, often took on responsibilities in the family, and he was especially important in helping my father manage the transition to life in Wisconsin. My brothers and I worked hard on the farm, and though I loved my siblings, I was always drawn more to the solitude and beauty of nature. Many of my siblings remained in the Midwest or moved to different parts of the country after we settled in Wisconsin.
Then, after you moved to America, what was that transition like?
My father sought religious freedom and farmland, so we settled in Wisconsin. During my childhood, my father made me read the Bible every day. I eventually memorized 3/4 of the Old Testament and all of the New Testament. We had a harsh life, endless farm work, clearing land, and little time for books or leisure. But I found solace in nature, wandering the woods, marveling at plants and animals.
How did you receive your schooling?
My formal education was rather spotty in my youth. In Scotland, I attended the local school in Dunbar, where I was introduced to literature and natural sciences. In Wisconsin, schooling was limited, but I was a curious boy. I built mechanical inventions like clocks, a study desk that flipped pages automatically, and that curiosity eventually led me to the University of Wisconsin in 1860. I didn't earn a degree, but I took a keen interest in botany and geology. The natural world always was my greatest teacher. Did you form any significant personal relationships during your lifetime? Yes. Later in life, I married Louisa Wanda Strenzel in 1880. She came from a family of fruit farmers in California. I went into business for 10 years with my father-in-law, managing the orchards on the family's 2,600-acre farm in Martinez, California. We had 2 daughters, Wanda Muir Hanna and Helen Muir Funk, but my greatest love was always the wild. My heart was in the mountains, the forests, and the great untouched landscapes of America. I was sustained by the natural environment and by reading essays of the naturalist author Ralph Waldo Emerson, who wrote about the very life that I was then living. On my excursions to the back country of Yosemite, I traveled alone, carrying only a tin cup, a handful of tea, and a loaf of bread, and a copy of Emerson. I usually spent my evenings sitting by a campfire in my overcoat reading Emerson under the stars. As the years passed, I became a fixture in the valley, respected for my knowledge of natural history, my skill as a guide, and my vivid storytelling. Visitors to the valley often included scientists, artists, and celebrities, many of whom made a point of meeting with me. Tell me, what were your impressions when you first saw Yosemite? Well, the first time was for a week-long visit to Yosemite, a place I'd only read about. Seeing it for the first time, I was overwhelmed by the landscape, scrambling down stiff cliff faces to get a closer look at the waterfalls, whooping and howling at the vistas, jumping tirelessly from flower to flower. I later returned to Yosemite and worked as a shepherd for a season. I climbed a number of mountains, including Cathedral Peak and Mount Dana, and hiked an old trail down Bloody Canyon to Mono Lake. So, didn't you at one point actually live in Yosemite? Yes, I did. I built a small cabin along Yosemite Creek, designing it so that a section of the stream flowed through the corner of the room so I could enjoy the sound of the running water. I lived in the cabin for 3 years. During those years in Yosemite, I was unmarried, often unemployed, with no prospects for a career. John, tell us who or what inspired you to become so concerned about the environment. That's a question close to my heart. My love for nature began in my boyhood, roaming the rugged coastlines and countryside of Scotland. But it was truly the wild landscapes of America that deepened my devotion. 2 great influences shaped my concern for the environment. First, the land itself. When I arrived in Wisconsin, I was captivated by the endless forests, the prairies teeming with life, and the quiet majesty of the lakes. Every plant, every creature seemed to have a story to tell. Second, the writings of great naturalists and poets stirred my soul. The works of Alexander von Humboldt, Henry David Thoreau, and Ralph Waldo Emerson resonated deeply with me. Emerson himself once visited me in Yosemite, and we spoke of nature's spiritual power. But the true turning point came in 1867, when I suffered a terrible accident while working in a factory. A sharp tool striking my eye, leaving me nearly blind. During my recovery, I vowed that if my sight returned, I would dedicate my life to nature. When I healed, I kept that promise, setting off on a 1,000-mile walk to the Gulf of Mexico, and later wandering the Sierra Nevada, where I found my true home among the mountains. The destruction of the wilderness also stirred me to action. I saw how logging, overgrazing, and Reckless development threatened the very beauty that had nourished my soul. I knew I had to speak out, to fight for the land, to ensure future generations could experience the grandeur of untouched wilderness. Nature was not just a resource, it was a sanctuary, a teacher, a necessity for the human spirit. And then what inspired your deep passion for the environment? It was nature itself. As a child, I was captivated by the intricate beauty of flowers, the songs of birds, and the vastness of the wild. I realized life was too short to be spent indoors, so I set out on a 1,000-mile walk from Indiana to the Gulf of Mexico. That journey, and later my time in the Sierra Nevada, especially Yosemite, solidified my belief that nature must be preserved for future generations. Then, what did you do to help protect the environment? I wrote, I spoke, I fought. I penned articles and books describing the majesty of nature, hoping to awaken the public's love for wild spaces. I co-founded the Sierra Club in 1892, which remains a force of conservation today. My greatest achievement was influencing President Theodore Roosevelt. When we camped together in Yosemite in 1903, I urged him to expand protections for national parks. He listened, and vast areas of land were safeguarded. All right, so since you brought up President Roosevelt, let's talk about how you became involved with him. My meeting with President Theodore Roosevelt was one of my fondest memories. My writings and advocacy for wilderness preservation had gained national attention, and I had already helped establish Yosemite National Park in 1890. Roosevelt, a great lover of nature himself, admired my work and sought my counsel. In 1903, he wrote to me, saying he wished to experience Yosemite the way I saw it, not as a politician, but as a man in the wild. So, as I said, I took him on a 3-day camping trip in the heart of the park. We left behind his entourage and slept under the stars, beside a roaring fire, surrounded by towering sequoias. We spoke of the importance of protecting America's wild places, and I told him bluntly that the government must do more to preserve the forests and mountains from destruction. Roosevelt, to his credit, listened intently. As we camped near Glacier Point, a snowstorm blanketed us, and he called it one of the best nights of his life. That trip had a lasting impact on him. Afterward, he expanded federal protections for the forests, monuments, and national parks, setting aside more than 230 million acres of public land. I'd like to think that our time in Yosemite helped shape his commitment to conservation. He was a man of action, and I was grateful he used his power to protect the wild places I love so dearly. You were famous for hikes. Can you share some of your most memorable ones? Oh, where do I begin? My 1,000-mile walk to the Gulf in 1867, my explorations of Yosemite in the 1860s and 70s, my treks to Alaska, where I discovered Glacier Bay. Each journey was a revelation. I climbed mountains, dodged avalanches, and even rode out an earthquake by climbing a tree. Every step deepened my belief that wilderness is a necessity for the human spirit. So, now that you're getting older, are you continuing your explorations? Yes, though my health has declined, I've never stopped. I traveled to South America, Africa, and Australia, studying forests and mountains worldwide. But my heart always remained in Yosemite and the High Sierras. I know that you talked about equality of all people. Can you briefly explain that? I spoke and wrote about the equality of all people, regardless of color or race, I wrote about the immorality of slavery, how we were all children of one father, sketched the characteristics of the different races of mankind, showing that no matter how far apart their countries were, how different in color, size, language, etc., and no matter how different and how various the ways in which we all got a living, that the white man and all the people of the world were essentially alike, that we all had 10 fingers and toes and our bodies were the same, whether white, brown, black, or different colors, and speak different languages. Looking back, what do you hope your legacy will be? I hope people remember that nature is not just a resource. It's our home, our refuge, our inspiration. If my words and efforts have helped preserve the wilderness for future generations, then I've done my duty. The mountains are calling, and I hope people will continue to answer that call. The sun shines not on us, but in us. The rivers flow not past, but through us. Thrilling, tingling, vibrating every fiber and cell of the substance of our bodies, making them glide and sing. The trees wave and the flowers bloom in our bodies, as well as our souls, and every bird song, wind song, and tremendous storm song of the rocks in the heart of the mountains is our song, our very own, and sings our love. There are no accidents in nature. Every motion of the constantly shifting bodies in the world is timed to the occasion for some definite, foreordered end. The flowers blossom in obedience to the same laws that marks the course of constellations, and the song of a bird is the echo of a universal symphony. Nature is one, and to me the greatest delight of observation and study is to discover new unities in this all-embracing and eternal harmony. Thank you, John, for your time and your wisdom. Your legacy lives on in every national park and preserved wilderness. Thank you, and may the beauty of nature continue to inspire all who seek it. John Muir died at 76 at California Hospital in Los Angeles on December 24, 1914, of pneumonia. He'd been in Daggett, California to see his daughter, Helen Muir Funk. During his lifetime, John Muir published over 300 articles and 12 books. He co-founded the Sierra Club, which helped establish a number of national parks after he died. Today, that club has over 2.4 million members. Muir has been called the patron saint of the American wilderness and its archetypical free spirit. As a dreamer and activist, his eloquent words changed the way Americans saw their mountains, forests, seashores, and deserts. He not only led the efforts to protect forest areas and have some designated as national parks, but his writings presented human culture and wild nature as one of humility and respect for all life. Robert Underwood Johnson, editor of the Century magazine, which published many of Muir's articles, states that he influenced people's appreciation of nature and national parks, which became a lasting legacy. The world will look back to the time we live in and remember the voice of one crying in the wilderness and bless the name of John Muir. He sung the glory of nature like another psalmist and, as a true artist, was unashamed of his emotions. His countrymen owe him gratitude as the pioneer of our system of national parks. Muir's writings and enthusiasm were the chief forces that inspired the movement. All the other torches were lighted from his. Muir exalted wild nature over human culture and civilization, believing that all life was sacred. He did so by describing the natural world as a conductor of divinity, and his writings often made nature synonymous with God. The result of his religious upbringing, Muir retained this belief, which is so strongly expressed in the Old Testament, that all the works of nature are directly the work of God. In the opinion of Enos Mills, a contemporary who established Rocky Mountain National Park, Muir's writings were likely to be the most influential force in this century. And now, another forgotten history. In 1915, a remarkable moment in history was captured when Chief Irontail, a Lakota Sioux leader, was seen cranking an early automobile. This fascinating image symbolized the merging of two vastly different worlds: the rich traditions of the Native American culture and the rapid technological advancements of the 20th century. Who was Chief Irontail? Chief Irontail was a leader known for his wisdom, bravery, and dedication to his people. He was also a skilled horseman and a famous performer in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, where he helped educate audiences about the Native American culture. His distinguished features and strong presence made him one of the most recognizable Native American figures of his time. In fact, his profile was used as one of the models for the iconic Indian head buffalo nickel, minted from 1913 to 1938. The early 1900s were an exciting time in transportation history. Cars were a new and fascinating invention, replacing horses as the primary means of travel. However, these early automobiles didn't have the modern push-button ignitions we use today. Instead, they had to be started manually, using a hand crank at the front of the engine. This required physical effort, and if done incorrectly, it could be dangerous. The crank could kick back and injure the user. Chief Irontail and the automobile found himself face to face with his new invention. A photograph was taken during that time, shows him wearing traditional Lakota attire while turning the crank of the early automobile. This powerful image captured more than just a moment of curiosity. It representing the blend of past and future, tradition and progress. At the time, automobiles were still a novelty in many parts of the country, and for someone like Chief Irontail, who had spent his life on horseback, this interaction with modern technology was both symbolic and historic. It highlighted the rapid changes occurring in America and the resilience of indigenous people adapting to a world that was evolving before their eyes. Chief Irontail's legacy lives on not only through the famous Buffalo Nickel, but also through his contribution to Native American history and culture. His involvement in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show helped educate the public about indigenous traditions, and his leadership inspired generations. That 1915 photograph of him cranking an automobile serves as a reminder of how history is full of unexpected moments that connect old with the new. Today, as we drive modern vehicles with advanced technology, it's fascinating to look back at a time when cars were still a novelty. The image of Chief Irontail, a leader from a proud warrior tradition, engaging with one of the era's greatest innovations, reminds us that history is always in motion, just like the wheels of progress. Join us next week when we talk with author Laura Ingalls Wilder, who wrote the book series Little House on the Prairie. Until then, take care.